Yeah, I definitely grew up in singing and musicals. I started singing when I was pretty young. We had a neighbor who she wasn't even like a formal music teacher necessarily, but I think I was just singing a lot as a little kid, and so she sort of took notice of that and encouraged me. So I've been singing, like performing, probably since I was about 4 or 5. It's a pretty young start. And then I too went to a performing arts school. So it wasn't really until my early 20s that I started learning an instrument and writing my own music. But the singing aspect in particular has been something that I've had a relationship with for a very long time now. So I had kind of started playing guitar around age 20, and I actually lost my sibling when I was 21, and he struggled with mental health and he died by suicide when I was 21. So my only other sibling. But the context is that that's actually where I started writing from. So I hadn't really written a whole lot of my own music, and it just so coincided that I just started playing an instrument sort of right prior to this happening. And a huge part of the early days of processing that grief, which is an ongoing, that's a forever kind of grief journey for me, but was writing these songs, for him, for my family, about my experience, and inevitably performing those as well. To have that craft at that time, I just sort of think about that and I'm like, man, I wonder like what I would have done without that outlet. And it also gave, our extended community almost like a place to gather, because I did end up choosing to share these songs live and whatnot. And it's like, so we would come together, and there was a really powerful aspect in that. But to be able to have an instrument and be able to kind of put those melodies and those ideas to actual, chords and be able to accompany myself, that was sort of where it all began. The one thing about being a singer, which I recognize is actually, it's always given me like a reason to take care of myself. The voice, it's like these tiny little vocal cords that are like the size of your finger. Somatically, my body and my voice is quite sensitive if I'm, ultimately not taking care of myself. It's interesting in that it's always given me a reason to continue to strive to take good care. So these days that looks like a lot of different things. A lot of what I've learned in the last little while is just like how to get back into my body. I've had anxiety for a lot of my life, and I've learned to befriend it and sort of not be in resistance, but I also have a lot of tools now to be able to move with it and like get back into my body. So whether that's movement or just going on a walk with a podcast, doing a bit of breath work. Also met a lot of really amazing coaches and teachers and guides, and so, but I'm like pretty serious about my self-study and about learning myself. There's a saying I've heard quite a few times, easier said than done sometimes, but what you resist persists. So that idea of being like, say there's a big performance coming up or something, and I can feel that anxiety kind of like, slowly filling my system. If I'm like, oh no, like I can't be anxious because then I'm going to be like tense, and then my voice is like, it's like, like it's like I, by resisting the fact that I'm sort of having this response, I'm like doubling down on it. Yeah, but sort of back to what I was saying about the self-soothing of sort of just like meeting myself where I'm at and being like, it's okay. I can recognize the actual physical sensation of anxiety in my body, and I can be like, okay, cool. I don't say like I am anxious. I'll say like I'm experiencing this, to depersonalize it, like even get space from it in that language. Yeah, like really, really basic stuff that you don't even need like a fancy guide or anything like that. It's like, if I can get kind of a second alone, I'll even just like put my hand on my heart and like literally just say to myself, like, you're safe. Like, I'll take some deep breaths to almost like be able to like run a feeling in your body to clear it. And music is like no other in some ways. I guess the context for that is I didn't even realize at that point that singing, it actually stimulates that same parasympathetic part of your nervous system, because you're taking deep breaths And the beautiful thing is it doesn't even matter if you're a good singer to get the health benefits of that. You know, medically, the idea of kind of calming down, taking deep breaths. But when you sing, you're taking breaths in order to produce resonance and to phonate. So to me, I didn't even realize that although I was spending a lot of time up in my head, really quite dissociated from my body, when I would sing, I actually would be tapping into this thing that I didn't even recognize maybe, you know, did have this medicinal property to it. But now I nerd out on it and I'm like, yeah, everybody should sing. It doesn't matter if you're good. I think when I was younger, there's a lot of sort of striving and you're kind of grasping at you know, approval or external validation. It's almost like someone outside of you has the opportunities, has the sort of key to your success. And I have been thinking of it differently now in terms of like, how do I want to feel? It makes me, you know, when you're going to go and stand out in front of a huge crowd and share something with them, framing it that way for me almost makes it seem less like I'm just like out there to be judged. It's like I'm going in with a really specific intention, wanting to kind of create like a specific energy and influence the energy of the audience. And so it's like, it's empowering, I suppose, versus sort of being like, oh, there's someone out there, I need to impress them. Again, like the grasping of sort of, I need these people to like this. Of course, I want people to enjoy themselves. But again, it's sort of, I think age and experience has allowed me to be like, but I need to be grounded and have my own back first and foremost. And, you know, if somebody enjoys it and wants to work with me or XYZ, that's great. But it's like just really valuing myself first and not waiting for someone else to kind of be like, yeah, you know. Yeah, for younger folks, just getting into music, I think, I suppose it depends on environment, your teachers, your influences and whatnot. I think it's really important to try and be able to cultivate some freedom to begin with. The idea of trying to be good, and of course it's great to have goals and to work towards something, but it's like freedom of expression first, almost before you start. A lot of singing coaches I've had and whatnot, it's like you have a young voice, right? It's just like this sort of unbridled thing, and it's like you don't want to start like just getting so manipulative and sort of crafting this into this thing right before. So to me, that's what I'm trying to get back to in my own personal practice, is sort of my own relationship to creativity that is ultimately just a relationship between me and my craft. It's not so much about what other people think of it, you know, because I have sung for so long. It's like, it's not always about being pretty, and you know, I hope that's coming across, but it's like to give yourself some freedom to just like explore, because a lot of it, and who knows, you know, I'm not really on TikTok, but it's like a lot of it is, it seems like a lot of it is, you get a lot of gratification when you're sharing, and a lot of, you know, that can be really exciting, and your body gets a dopamine hit, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just, I didn't really know what it was like to just have a relationship to my work. It was always sort of, I'm creating to share this. I'm, you know, so I would be curious for people to, because, you know, I'll hear a lot of people say, well, I'm a bad singer. So you just never sing, right? Because nobody wants to be bad at something. It's like, let yourself be bad. Yeah, I was just working on this with a coach that I work with yesterday. We were talking about, we had performed in an event on Friday, and the microphones, we basically just tried using these kind of bluegrass microphones that have a polar pattern, so they pick up sound, like, and we checked them in a quiet room, but then the room filled up with loud people. And, you know, my instinct is to double down on like, well, I should have known better to have brought those. You know, I've been working professionally at this since I was a child. You know, like kind of you're like, I would never speak to someone else like that. Back to, again, keep coming back to that idea of sustainability. It's just like, well, who cares? You know, it's like, it really means nothing in the scheme of things. It was still an enjoyable evening. In any practice, I do think that mindset is, allows you a lot more room for exploration. And who loves artists that don't explore and take risks? Like, that sounds kind of boring.